right, one more little blue wing olive merger for you, and then I'm cleaning this mess up and I'm getting ready for my demo. But I'm going to tie you a parachute emerger. This is a obvious takeoff variation of a bar emerger, and sort of a better floating version. A lot of people don't know that the original bar emerger was a dry fly, meant to be fished dry, tied on a 101. And really the same exact tying steps, nothing different about it other than tied on a dry fly hook. And meant to be fished dry in the surface. Grease it up, grease the leader, and fish that in the surface. The problem with that is it's really hard to see. So this little parachute version is a much easier to see version and more buoyant. And it is a good fly. I've caught a lot of fish on this over the years. So I'm going to tie this with some brown 18-aught Viva, or gosh, I keep saying that. This is an 18-aught Nanosilk, and it's brown. It doesn't matter. It's not going to show. So it's in my bobbin. That's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to start this thread at about 75 or 80% on the hook and wrap to about the middle. And for the shuck, I'm just going to use a little brown or copper or orange-colored Antron yarn here. So I've got a clump of Antron, and I'm not going to use this whole clump. I'm going to take a sparse little bunch. I'm going to say this is, gosh, 8 or 10 strands. And I'm going to tie this in up here where I started my thread. And if you got a clean square edge on it, you can just pull it down to length. And I'm going to wrap back over it down around the bend of the hook. I want this to face down. I'll leave that long for the moment. And I'm going to take some olive brown superfine dubbing. And I'm going to use this for the abdomen. So I'm going to build a nicely tapered abdomen out of this dubbing. So I'm going to put it on very thin. And I want to start this first turn of dubbing back here at the base of the shuck, the base of that tail. And I'll work forward from there, and I want to build a very tight abdomen. You can see I can kind of start to form my taper as I come forward. A couple turns forward, one back. Got a little lump there, don't like that one. Kind of finish off that taper. And I'll end with my thread hanging on top of the dubbing there. So this is where we're going to tie in our little foam post. And what I've got here is some 2mm foam that I've cut about 2 by 2 millimeters, about a 2 by 2 millimeter square of foam. And if you're real picky, you could use a round post. I've always used square just cut from a sheet. And you can stretch this down a little bit if you need to make it smaller. I don't know that I need to make it any smaller on this fly, so I'm going to leave that full size. And I'm going to tie this in just up off the front edge of the abdomen here. And catch the end, and then I want to wrap back over it. Right to the front edge of our abdomen, like so. Now I'm going to pick up a hackle feather, and this one's sitting on my desk, and he's about the right size and plenty long. This is a medium barred ginger dyed dun. But regular just dyed dun or natural dun colored hackle will work just fine for this. And it's, sized appropriately for the hook. You can go slightly oversized on this. And I like to strip the end so that I've got a bare stem there. Hold that out here. There you go. Now you can see it. And when I tie this in, I want to tie it in with the inside facing up, the concave side up. And then I'm going to grab somewhere here, get my hackle pliers ready. Now I'm going to dub the thorax. And I've always tied this with gray muskrat or beaver dubbing for the thorax. And I've got a little pinch of kind of charcoal gray beaver here. So you can see the color color scheme is the exact same as a bar merger, a blue-winged olive bar merger. This incidentally is a great fly for blue-wing olives too. The only thing you'd change is you would use pale yellow dubbing here for the thorax. Everything else would be the same, including the hackle. So I'm going to start to dub my thorax here from the front right up to the base of that wing. You could even take a turn right behind the wing if you were so inclined. Kind of ball that up a bit. I want to end with my thread just behind the eye there. You can see that tiny little nub of foam that's sticking out. No big deal. That's gonna it's not gonna show, so we're not gonna sweat it. So now I'm gonna grab this in my hackle pliers. Grab my hackle feather here, and I'm gonna start to wrap around the base of the post. Now we don't need a thread post on this fly because this foam sort of grabs that hackle pretty nicely. So I'm gonna wrap up and down the post. And as I go to finish, what I want to do is pull this out over the eye, kind of down on the far side, and I'll lift all that hackle up. And I can bring the tip forward between my fingers and catch it with a pinch wrap. This is sort of the way we used to do parachutes back in the day before we came up with a better way of doing it. So I'm going to tie that feather tip off just behind the eye there. And then I want to come in and trim that out, and hopefully I get all those little loose ones, except for those two. I didn't want to get those two on the bottom. I wanted to come in separately to trim those out. There we go. And then I can come and whip finish my thread and nick that out of there. And I can kind of stand my post up a little bit. And I'm going to pull that post up. I'm not really going to stretch it much, but I'm going to cut that foam into just a short little nub. Makes a nice little white square on top, makes the fly easy to see. And then I can kind of clean up any hackle that got disheveled. You know, the technique of tying this is such that you can't make a really clean post and wrap your hackle all concentrically, so it kind of comes through itself. So it gets a little messy, but you can kind of see the general idea there. And then I'll trim that shuck about a half a shank long, hanging down off the back, like so. And there we are. The idea on this fly is the water line, let's see here, let's get a lighter colored thread, is that parachute hackle is going to sit like so. And the water line is going to have the rest of the body of that bug under the water, but that hackle is going to keep it on top. And that little white post on top makes that real easy to see. I might nub that down just a little bit more, like so. You can see that kind of mushrooms over the top and locks that hackle in, so it's not going to go anywhere. So that's the parachute merger. That's a good fly too. I like it. Yep. Oh yeah, dry fly hatches are coming. We'll all get out there, and that's my favorite thing to do, is have fish rising to particularly a blue-wing olive hatch. And the mole fly is my obvious go-to for that, but occasionally I'll throw a different fly. Don't usually have to, but if I had to, this might be one of them. Probably would be. Always has been. Anyway, there you go. Parachute merger. Thanks for watching. I'm Charlie Craven.